All right, let's dive into one of history's most bizarre and most consequential military blunders. It's a story that cracks open the incredibly rigid, and to the Romans, deadly serious world of divine law. And yeah, it involves a high-stakes naval battle, a very arrogant general, and some extremely important chickens. Let them drink since they will not eat. Just let that sink in. Those are the words that literally sealed the fate of an entire Roman fleet. Spoken in a moment of pure frustration, they were a shocking act of defiance against the gods. And they came with an absolutely catastrophic price. So, what on earth is the story here? Okay, so picture this. The year is 249 BC. We're in the middle of the First Punic War, and Rome is locked in this huge knockdown drag-out fight with its arch-rival, Carthage. On the coast of Sicily, a Roman consul named Publius Claudius Pulcher is about to launch a massive surprise attack on the Carthaginian fleet. The stakes could not be higher. Now, you have to understand, before any big move like this, a Roman commander had one crucial job: ask the gods for their permission. So Pulcher performs the ritual with the sacred chickens kept for this exact purpose. But there's a problem, a huge problem. The chickens refuse to eat. And for the Romans, this is a crystal clear, terrible sign. The gods are screaming, "No, do not attack." So what does the furious consul Pulcher do? He sneers, speaks those infamous words, and just chucks the sacred birds into the sea. Then he orders the attack anyway. The result? An absolute, unmitigated disaster. The element of surprise was gone. The Romans sailed right into a trap, and get this, 93 Roman ships were captured by the enemy. It was one of the single worst naval defeats in the Republic's history. I know what you're thinking. This sounds completely insane, right? A top general dooms his own fleet because he's annoyed with some birds? But to really get this, we have to see it the way the Romans did. And for them, this wasn't just superstition. No, this was about law and order on a cosmic scale. You see, the Romans truly believed the gods were always talking to them, constantly sending signals and omens about their will. And they didn't just guess what those signals meant. They built an entire formal, state-sanctioned system just to read them. Think of it less like fortune-telling and more like an official science. And the core of this whole system was called the auspicia. Now, we're not talking about personal prayer or just hoping for the best. Nope. This was a formal, almost legal process for getting a divine thumbs up or thumbs down on a specific plan. It was basically like needing to get a permit directly from the gods. And without favorable auspices, no major state business, no elections, no battles could legally go forward. Period. And you can see just how organized this was. The Romans had 5 official types of signs they looked for, from lightning in the sky to the way birds flew. But if you're a general on a military campaign, what's the most practical method? You guessed it, extrapudius, observing the sacred chickens. It was like a portable divine yes or no test. If the chickens ate like crazy, that was a big yes from the gods. If they refused to eat, that was a hard no. So who were the experts reading these signs? They were called augurs. And let me tell you, these guys were some of the most powerful people in all of Rome. Their interpretation of an omen could bring the entire government to a screeching halt. This wasn't friendly advice. It was a binding ruling on what the gods would permit. Okay, so we've got the how. We know how they read the signs. But the really big question is why? Why was all of this so incredibly important? What was the end game for all these rituals? Well, the goal, the ultimate prize, was something called the Pax Dare worm. It literally means the peace of the gods. And this was the absolute bedrock of their entire state religion. The best way to think about it is like a treaty, a sacred contract between Rome and its gods. As long as Rome held up its end of the bargain, the gods would ensure Rome's success. And how did Rome hold up its end of the bargain? Through religio. And you gotta pay attention here, because this is a key difference. For us, religion is usually about faith, personal belief. For the Romans, not so much. Religio meant the scrupulous, correct performance of rituals and duties. It was about action, not emotion. Get the ritual right, you keep the peace. Screw it up, and you're asking for disaster. The famous orator Cicero really nailed it. He defined religio as the cultivation of the gods. I love that imagery. It's an active process. You have to constantly tend to your relationship with the divine, just like a farmer tends to their fields if you want a good harvest. All right, so if Roman religion is a contract, then there have to be rules, right? Terms and conditions. And of course, there were. It basically all boiled down to two fundamental concepts that acted as the divine rulebook. These two concepts were phos and nephos. Think of phos as everything that's right, lawful, and permissible in the eyes of the gods. Actions that keep the universe running smoothly. Nephos, well, that's the opposite. It's a cosmic foul. An act so profoundly wrong that it doesn't just break a human law, it violates the divine order itself. And that's when you invite the ira deorum, the anger of the gods.
And this brings us right back to general culture. When those chickens refused to eat, it wasn't a suggestion. It was an official divine stop sign. So to willfully ignore that sign and then to throw the divine messengers overboard, yeah, that wasn't just a bad joke. It was a willful, public, textbook example of nephis.
So now, with all this context, let's circle back to that disastrous morning at sea. We can finally understand the real reason why those chickens mattered so much. You can just see the chain reaction. Poulter asked for an official sign, the auspicia, and he got one. His open defiance was a clear act of nephas. That act of nephas shattered the Pax Deorum. In that one moment, he effectively tore up Rome's sacred treaty with the gods. And the immediate result was the ira deorum, divine wrath delivered in the form of a humiliating military defeat. So you see, in the end, this was never really about the chickens. They were just the instruments, the official channel of communication. Poulter's real crime wasn't cruelty to animals, it was telling the gods that he, a mere mortal, knew better. He broke the fundamental operating system of the Roman universe. And this is so key to the entire Roman mindset. They saw a direct line connecting their piety, their careful adherence to this whole system, and their incredible success as a world power. They believed their empire wasn't built on legions and concrete alone, but on this carefully maintained peace with the gods. So the real takeaway from the story of the sacred chickens is that Roman religion wasn't about finding personal salvation. It was a deeply practical, almost legalistic, public system of contracts and duties. Its whole purpose was to keep the cosmos in balance and ensure the very survival of Rome itself. Which leaves us with a final thought to chew on. The Romans lived by a divine rulebook that seems totally alien to us. But it makes you wonder, doesn't it? What are the unspoken contracts, the sacred obligations, and the cosmic laws that we believe our own societies depend on for their survival?